Now, this is a show that I've been eagerly anticipating. Presumed Innocent, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, has just hit Apple TV, and it's safe to say that with True Detective Season 4 being a bit of a miss this year, a dark, thought-provoking, investigative show has been an itch that's needed scratching. And I think this show could be exactly that. Focusing on former Chief Deputy Prosecutor Rusty Sabich being accused of the murder of County Prosecutor Carolyn Polhemus, the first 2 episodes have already added a lot of complexity in the case, and it almost feels like there's a sense of True Detective Season 1 about this. So let's jump into the video and break down all that there was to take away from the first 2 episodes. Here is Presumed Innocent, episodes 1 and 2, ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Who sent the text message? Well, right at the end of the second episode, we saw that after Raymond appeared in court to represent Rusty, after having a trial date set at the earliest point possible, once Rusty was bailed from jail and at home, he received a text message from a number which said, "You were there, I saw you." This could be alluding to many different things, but considering that Rusty's affair with Carolyn was out in the public and everybody knew, I think it could mean that on the night that Carolyn was killed, Rusty was at her home. The number wasn't private, so it most likely means that Rusty will be able to call the person back in the next episode, and we might find out the identity of who it was. But for now, I don't actually think it's anybody that we've met in the show so far. Tommy and Nico would probably be the most likely culprits for the text, but they'd be interfering with their own trial if they were to start blackmailing him. Maybe Carolyn's ex-husband. Raymond referred to him as a weirdo. What's to say that he wasn't still besotted with his ex-wife, and after hearing about Rusty from her, it could have made him want to find out more about him, which could have led him to have been watching him on that night. That's just a theory for now. Rusty openly admitted that he was like an obsessive stalker following Carolyn calling things off with him, and with the flashback showing that he was distraught, crying, and looking like he was actually trying to drown her in a pool at one point. That does point to a side of the character that we've not openly seen, only heard about in brief moments. If he said that he was like a stalker, his prints were found in her bedroom, rope was found in his house, and let's remember as well, he was wiping down his car at the start of the second episode to get rid of prints. There's definitely more to come with Rusty, and I think there's going to be a dark side to the character, a side which could have placed him there on the night of her death. One key thing that I think was overlooked at the time was the fact that there was no sign of forced entry, which meant that Carolyn most likely knew the person that killed her. Right now, that points towards Rusty and her ex-husband, as there was nobody else that knew her in as much of a personal way when compared to the both of them. But if Rusty was there on the night that she died, what if she forgot to lock the door after he left, or something like that? That's if he's not the murderer. That would have ultimately allowed a stranger to just walk in, so I'm intrigued to see how that's going to develop further. The text messages are only the beginning as the plot seems to thicken. The similarities between the Bunny Davies case and Carolyn Polhemus. One thing that's extremely clear from the murder of Carolyn is that her death is one that's very similar to that of Bunny Davies, somebody who was murdered by Liam Reynolds, an individual that Carolyn prosecuted and was now serving a life sentence behind bars. Carolyn was tied up in the exact same way that Bunny Davies was, but the difference was that Carolyn's death was put down to blunt force trauma to the head, whereas Bunny was killed with a knife. Liam Reynolds was behind bars, so it would make it difficult for him to be the suspect. However, he did swear to get revenge. As he was taken away after being found guilty, he said, "There are 2 things I never forget, faces and being effed over." Whilst it was always assumed that Reynolds was the sole murderer of Bunny, when Rusty looked through the case files, he saw that there was another spermatozoa sample found at the scene of the crime for Bunny's death. But it was never delved into or revealed due to the fact that it couldn't be identified. This is massive for the case of Carolyn. If there was another person that was involved in Bunny's murder, then it would make sense as to why Carolyn was killed in a similar fashion, with the tying up being key. Liam could have found a way to have reached out to the person that was his accomplice in the murder and got him to seek that revenge that he wanted to get on Carolyn. Right now, that's the most plausible answer, but it was also said that Carolyn put a lot of people away, so it could have been done by somebody else that was put away, or a relation of some kind, and they decided to act like a copycat killer. Rusty's conflict. One thing that I think has worked really well in the show so far is being able to see inside of Rusty's mind. We were first introduced to him as a family man that was playing in the garden with his kids, but as the episodes went on, we saw that he was actually far from the person that we initially thought that he was. He cheated on his wife, was in love with another woman, he was a liar, he was obsessed with her, and he became a stalker. There were moments in the first 2 episodes where Rusty's mind would drift between his wife and also Carolyn when reflecting on what happened in the past. These were scenes which were so well executed. It showed the importance that they both meant to him, but how he was dragged in one direction, the direction towards Carolyn. He had an affair, it got called off, and then recently started it up again before her death. There's no denying the fact that he loves Barbara, but at the same time, the connection that he had with Carolyn is something that we've only really seen get briefly mentioned. But it sounded like they were comfortable with one another, and it was just easy between them. So it makes sense as to why he was drawn towards her, something which will ultimately go against him. This allows us to see 2 different sides to the character, and what if that's a hint towards showing us that there's a different way that there are 2 sides to him? My review of the episodes. Honestly, I thought the first 2 episodes of this show were really good. I feel like there hasn't been a good detective drama in a long while, and this one immersed us into it immediately. Literally, within the first few minutes, we found out that Carolyn was killed, and then from there we saw the downward spiral of Rusty Sabich and the walls quite literally closing in on him minute by minute. Jake Gyllenhaal already feels like the perfect casting for this role. His character gives me a similar feeling to Nightcrawler and Prisoners, and he absolutely delivered in those performances, so I have high hopes for what's to come with him playing Rusty Sabich. One of the best moments for me in the opening 2 episodes was when Sabich walked into the courtroom and Raymond was standing there behind the table and then absolutely put Nico and Tommy in their place, showing that he was skilled at what he did and that he was going to be taking the fight to them. With regards to the show, it kind of feels like it's got the tone and story of the first season of True Detective, but the score and music of Succession, so it almost feels like there's a certain level of class to it when you're watching the scenes unfold. I think that's probably due to the piano arrangements that seem to steal the show. One thing that I liked about the first 2 episodes was just how quick it was in terms of pacing. The moment the show started, we were immersed into the drama that was unfolding and the severity of the case. The plot thickened as time went on, and we saw Rusty go from being a colleague to a lover to an obsessive stalker that was a pathological liar. We haven't seen those messages that he was sending to Carolyn, but I'm intrigued to see just how damaging they are. I also like the divide that was present between Raymond and Rusty versus Nico and Tommy. That's a feud that has escalated out of the workplace, and the rivalry is something which is now going to have dire consequences. I thought the scene where Rusty was forced to tell his children that he was having an affair was a scene that was handled really well. The shock that was in the children's faces and the stunned silence spoke louder than any scream, push, or word. I also thought that the imposing nature of the police when they were doing their searches, and also the news networks being involved, allowed us to feel like this wasn't something which was just altering his life, but it was also impacting his entire family's life. Some of the best moments in the show came when we were inside of Rusty's head. We watched him battle with his inner thoughts and the feeling of mourning not only the life of Carolyn, but the relationship that he once had with her. The constant flashing between Carolyn and Barbara in his mind showed the level of conflict that he had within it, and the confusion that he felt in the present day over what he did. This is a show that I'm really excited about because I feel like it has a lot of layers to it, and we've only just lifted the lid. I'll be covering the show every week, so be sure to come back for more breakdowns on it. So, there you have it, Presumed Innocent, episodes 1 and 2, ending explained. If you want to see more breakdowns on your favourite TV shows and movies, then click on the card in the top corner, or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. What did you think of the first 2 episodes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.